Considered one of the most controversial weapons of war and capable of inflicting gruesome physical injuries and intense psychological trauma, this weapon would be used to immolate enemy combatants on the battlefield. Enemy troops held up in bunkers, not immolated by the weapon's destruction, would often die from its indirect mechanisms, such as hypoxia and carbon monoxide poisoning. Eventually, the weapon would be considered to be an unnecessarily painful and inhumane way to inflict casualties and would be abandoned. What was this feared weapon of mass destruction? Who created it? And when was it first used in combat? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, military veteran, historian, and author, and on this episode of Forgotten History, we will cover one of the most feared weapons of modern warfare, the flamethrower. The first mention of what we may consider a type of flamethrower comes from ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War, where a Greek fire was piped from a liquid fuel source and fired through a tube against enemy ships and troops in the field or against fortifications. In 107 AD, the Romans used a flamethrower of similar design against the Dacians in modern-day Romania. Over time, technology made it a very viable and important weapon in the military arsenals of almost every force in the world. The first widespread use was during World War I, but these were not always reliable, based upon a design by Richard Fiedler, creating a single portable unit carried by an individual soldier. Called the Flamethrower, it could be carried by a single soldier and used gas pressure to push an ignited stream of flaming oil with a range of about 20 yards. The Germans first used it on February 26, 1915 in the trenches at Verdun, and the British and French soon created and deployed their own. The basic design of the first flamethrowers has not changed very much. It still consists of the fuel tanks on a backpack and a gun or wand with a spray nozzle. An igniter triggers the flame, but there were variations. The wand consists of a small reservoir with a spring-loaded valve and ignition system. The cylinders are opened by primary valves, allowing all chemicals and propellant to flow to the wand or gun, and depressing the trigger on the gun opens the secondary valve, allowing pressurized flammable liquid pushed by the gas or compressed air to flow and pass over the igniter, initiating the flame and out of the gun nozzle. There are different types of igniters, such as an electrically heated wire coil. Another version used a small pilot flame, also fueled with pressurized gas from the system. Their primary value is their psychological impact. In the two-cylinder system, one cylinder holds either compressed air or an inert propellant, usually nitrogen, and the other cylinder holds the flammable liquid, typically some form of petrochemical. A three-cylinder system often has two outer cylinders of flammable liquid, often two chemicals being mixed upon dispersal, and a central cylinder of propellant gas. Later, improved versions arrived, providing greater fuel capacity and range. During World War II, every nation had a man-packed version with a range of 45 to 50 yards, or even tank-carried versions with a range of 100 yards. The fuel mixture was also more stable, using compressed air to propel the fuel. British and American versions used napalm, or naphtha, or thickened gasoline, with a greater range than ordinary gasoline. It burned with an intense heat, even burning in water as it feeds off oxygen and sticks to whatever it touched. The man-packed unit had about 10 seconds of fuel, while the tank-carried version could fire for about 1 minute, and short bursts were used to have maximum effect. They proved invaluable in the Pacific and European theaters, where Army and Marine units had dedicated and well-trained flamethrower teams. They excelled at burning the enemy out of bunkers, pillboxes, tunnels, and fortified positions. They were used during the Korean War as well as in Vietnam, where the terrain favored the Viet Cong and NVA, who had built intricate tunnel systems and bunker complexes. These flamethrowers had improved, hurling a stream of flame up to 100 yards. Historically, men who used flamethrowers had one of the shortest life expectancies. This was because they were carrying a heavy, bulky product that made them a high visible target. Often, a malfunction in the flamethrower's flow function created self-immolation if hit by an incendiary round. Otherwise, the fuel tanks would not explode if hit by standard bullets, but the compressed air tank could explode, killing the carrier as seen in movies, but the fuel cells would just leak flammable fuel that would only burn if ignited by a secondary source. Today, in modern battle, the flamethrower is not even considered a viable weapon, and they have been largely abandoned. Thanks for watching today's episode of Forgotten History. If you like this episode, please consider being a channel member or joining our Patreon page. This would help us offset the ever-increasing cost of production. As always, please like, share, and comment. And if you have any show ideas, we would love to hear from you. Until next time.